remember a few days ago I was talking about hot air, why it rains, and I mentioned that hot air rises and that hot air can contain more water vapor, and as the air rises it gets cooler and the water vapor turns into rain and it starts to rain. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that. I've also talked about Mary's weather maps. Do you remember? High pressure and low pressure. Let me tell you a little bit more about that. If you, for example, have a low pressure system, and you remember I said that the winds on a low pressure system go anti-clockwise round the system. Sometimes you'll see on Mary's maps something like this, and then you'll see something like that, and there'll be blue triangles sticking out like that. That's actually called a cold front. It's a cold front. It's a frontal system that's coming through. And sometimes they tell us that there's a frontal system coming through. And that is a cold front, and it's moving that way, like that. Now, if you have color maps, if you, for example, had another system, let's say here, and it was warm weather that was coming in, they don't put a triangle, they put little half suns like that. And that's called a warm front. So here we have warm weather, here we have cold weather. They're moving that way. Now, if you want to look what happens, see what happens on the ground when this is happening, this is what it looks like. Remember I told you that hot air rises. So hot air is lighter than cold air. This is the ground. And we have a frontal system coming in. Let's say it's warm air that's coming in. Now warm air is hotter than cold air, remember? So when you get warm air coming in, it's hotter than cold air. So warm air goes up like that. And the warm air just slides up on top of the cold air because it's lighter, it's not as heavy. When I say cold, I don't mean freezing. It might just be the difference between 30 degrees and 32 degrees. This is relative. So if this is 30 degrees and this is 32 degrees, this is still colder than that. So the warm air goes up. If on the other hand we have cold air coming in, it doesn't look like this. This is how it looks. Here's the ground again. Now if we have some cold air coming in, let's say this is 30 degrees again, and in front of it, it's moving that way. In front of it we have warm air. What happens is that the cold air, because it's heavier, it's colder, it pushes underneath and it pushes the hot air up like that. And now we've already learnt, haven't we, from another talk, that when hot air rises it can't contain as much water, and so it starts to rain. But it's actually even worse than that, because this cold air pushes this hot air up so that we begin to get these big clouds like that, the big thunder clouds. And usually the thunder clouds are a result of cold air coming in, pushing the hot air up like this, and once it gets up there it starts to rain and you get thunder, lightning, winds and all sorts of things. Thunder clouds, by the way, I'll just mention one thing about them. They're very, very evil when you're in an aeroplane, because here's a big thunder cloud. You know, this is how they look, isn't it? Whoopsie daisy. They look like that. You know, they're big, towering things like this. And this is the ground below. What happens with a thunder cloud is that there's a downburst like that. It absolutely pours it down. And when this wind comes out, it hits the ground. And that goes that way, and that goes that way. So you remember in one of the things I told you about before, one of the lessons before, we have the aeroplane coming in here to land, and he has the wind against him. And remember, when an aeroplane lands, they're flying slowly. So let's say he's coming in at 60 miles an hour. The wind is against him, so the aeroplane thinks, sorry, the wind is against him, so say it's 20 miles an hour there. He's only doing 40 miles above the ground. It comes in very nice and slowly. When it comes to here, his indication, his instruments in the aeroplane will show him that he's going just as fast, but he'll have a tailwind, and that's very dangerous. When they land with a tailwind, that's very, very dangerous. If you look at VG Airport or Huonora, they always land against the wind. Landing with the wind is very dangerous. That's why airplanes seldom try and land in thunderstorms. If it's right above the airport, it can change from a headwind to a tailwind, and that's dangerous. We'll talk about more things tomorrow.